All right, fire it up. Let's do your thing here, bud. Nobody's any better at this than you are.
That's fine. Take a deep breath.
Give them hell at the end. Good luck to you.
Fight like hell like we do every week. You are the best here. Brett, be affirmative. You told me to get on.
Info. Ready. Ready. Go slow. Green, green, green. Lock it down, lock it down.
I'm destroyed, and I just got drove through like 6 times on the 14th. What the f*** is he thinking? That is the stupidest thing I've seen in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate. Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Hell yeah!
11 got it. Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
10-4, great job, guys.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark. Thank you for joining us for another week of NASCAR, Draftkings, and Southern 500. What a great weekend it has been. Been warm, no rain, just what NASCAR ordered for this weekend. Hope you're doing well. Before we get into Darlington, though, we have to go back and look at the final race of the regular season at Daytona. What a crazy, unusual race. Not unusual, I guess. I just didn't quite. I guess I did expect that RFK to run as well as they did. They've been running well at super speedways for the last couple years. So good on Chris Buescher for getting his 3rd win out of 5 of the last races, and the Ford's really showing up in full dominance for that race. Glad to see Ryan Preece back at the racetrack this weekend, and other than a couple black eyes, doing well after that just massive wreck last weekend. But the optimal lineup from Daytona, lots of place differential, will not be the case this week. No dominators, as expected. Lots of lead changes, lots of fast laps all throughout the field, which pretty much meant we only looked for place differential to make our lineups. And as true to form, that's kind of what fell. Hopefully you ended up having a decent week. Our Wheel of Doom did not pay off, but that was fun. It was good to just kind of throw some lineups out there. But Corey LaJoie, the most points, 65.05. Who had Corey LaJoie getting the most points? I mean, starting 37th, you have no place to go but up, really. And finishing 10th. Alex Bowman starting 31st. Michael McDowell starting 39th. I mean, as we can see, I mean, other than the RFK cars, it was all place differential, as expected. So even our drivers that did not make the optimal lineup, we only had 2 drivers that started in the top 10, and that was Eric Almirola and Kevin Harvick. Our optimal lineup challenge through the regular season. This runs for the next 10 weeks also. Don't just stop after the regular season. William Byron now has a 1-point lead over Martin Truex Jr. and Chris Buescher. Kyle Busch, Ricky Stenhouse, Michael McDowell still trying to fight to get back into the hunt for the optimal lineup challenge win this year. And Kyle Larson has a slight possibility on the outside. But, man, what is going on with the Chevys this week? Either way, Labor Day weekend at Darlington, presented by Crown Royal for the Cookout Southern 500. God, that's one really long title. They've got to tone down. Good Lord. But yeah, presented by Crown Royal, the Cookout Southern 500. Tongue twister. Darlington is a steep, high tire wear. This might be the most extreme tire wear track we go to, and it's an intermediate at 1.33 miles, 25 degrees and turns 1 and 2, and 23 degrees and turns 3 and 4. The race length is 367 laps. I mean, last night's Xfinity race was less than half of that, and it took over 2 hours to complete. This race is grueling. It is long. It is like the Coke 600. It's going to take 4 to 4.5 hours. It doesn't start till 6:30. We're not going to be done till probably close to 11 o'clock tonight. It is a just grueling, long race with a lot of dominator points on the line. You got 165.15 fast lap points, 91.75 laps led for 256.9 points of dominator points up for grabs. Dominator points will be what we need to eye in on, along with a couple of place differentials, but it's really to get into that optimal or top 15 in points. It really it's going to be dominator points and finishing spots. There are a couple guys to target for place differential, but not anything like we would normally look at for a lot of other tracks. Darlington's unique. It's probably one of the best race tracks on the circuit. It really challenges not only the drivers, the cars, the crew chiefs, but I mean even the fans. It's a long, long race. Other tracks we look at for high tire wear comparison: Dover being concrete, Miami Homestead down there close to the beach, and Kansas has also pretty high tire wear. You could also throw Las Vegas into that. Being out in the desert with all the sand, it does get quite abrasive for the tires. But the real reason we do this show is we break down the drivers. Let's get into that. If you're just getting in, make sure you hit me up in the chat. Give me your thoughts about who you like for tonight. Do you think I'm crazy by not going after place differential this week? I just don't. That's where we need to head. But I'd love to know what your feedback is, and who do you got for the win, and who do you got for potentially looking at top 10 and Draftkings points this week? That's really what we need to focus in on. But as I do every week, let's break down this box in detail, and from there we'll kind of cruise through the rest of them and highlight some key points. Denny Hamlin, the most expensive driver, also the winner of the Xfinity race yesterday. He has a total of 6 wins here at Darlington, which is just absolutely impressive. Family man, Matt, good luck, guys. Just dropped to give you a like. I appreciate that. Thanks. Matt's starting to focus in on his NFL. He takes his NFL about as serious as I take my NASCAR. Not that he doesn't take NASCAR serious, but his bread and butter is NFL, and hopefully he can drop a few hints my way. I'd appreciate it, because I'm not that good at it. I enjoy watching it. I'm just not very good at putting lineups together. There's too many choices, too many options, too many possibilities for me. Not that they're not here. There's 36 different possible people, but when you're talking about football, I mean, hell, there's 32 NFL teams, so there's 32 quarterbacks to choose from. But either way, Denny Hamlin, we'll break this box down one by one. Denny Hamlin, $11,000. This is his DraftKings price. On the next line here, we go to practice and qualifying. He qualified in the 2nd position, so outside of the front row. He was 8th in single lap practice. He did 35 total laps of practice, and we look at a 10-lap consecutive average, which means they go out and run 10 consecutive laps. And then you take the average of those lap times, and he was 3rd fastest out of the field. You had some guys out there that were making 25, 30 lap runs to see what their tire wear was going to be at the end of it, which is absolutely vital. I really, really wish NASCAR would increase their time for practice. I know for TV, everybody wants to watch it. They got a certain window of the amount of time that you have for TV and all that, but come on, at least give a full hour and just let the whole field go out and run. I know they break it up in groups and it ends up being almost an hour, but I'd rather have all the cars running at the same time. That way you can really kind of get a feel for what your car does in traffic. But either way, let's keep breaking this down. The next line down here is the last 5 races. for this week, it is actually the last 5 races at Darlington because they run here twice a year. So we've got the spring race from 2023, the fall and spring of 22, and the fall and spring of 21. So do remember that the fall and spring of 2021 was in the last generation car, not this next gen car. It'll be nice when we get just full data that's just this next gen car. But I think it's important to look at what they've done at this track the last 5 races. Sometimes, if they're only raced here once, I will throw in like similar tracks. But here, we're looking at all 5 of the Darlington races that they just ran. All right, but in those 5 races, Denny Hamlin has 1 win, 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 4 top 20s, a 54.6 DraftKings average, which is very, very solid and good, an 8.2 average finish, and he finished 12th here in the spring race. So for the purpose of this, the last race they raced at Darlington was the spring race. It is 100 miles shorter, or I think it's like 70 some odd laps shorter. So this is a much longer race. So we might have some attrition, but it's much more just who can get their car dialed in on the long run, who can take care of their tires. And then over here to the top right, we have the total races that a particular driver has run in the Cup Series at this track. Denny Hamlin has 22 total starts in the Cup Series at Darlington. He's got 5 wins out of those 22 starts, 14 top 5s, 17 top 10s, and 20 top 20s. Quite impressive that, 20 out of 22 times he has finished in the top 20. Heck, even better than that, over half the time he's finishing in the top 5. Denny Hamlin will be definitely somebody to keep an eye on for that finishing spot and dominator spot. 6.7 average finish out of those 22 races. Solid work by Denny Hamlin. I have him ranked 4th on my ranking systems. So the ranking system takes the last 5 races at the track. It takes the 10 races at similar style tracks. We went over that just a few minutes ago. And the last 10 races that they've raced of this past year. A lot of that is road courses. Some of that is super speedways. Some of it's short tracks. But it shows the trend on what the team is doing. So like a Chris Buescher, who's won 3 out of the last 5 races, if we didn't look at that and look at that trend and what have you done for me lately, which I think is very important, plug into this algorithm. Then it also takes into qualifying, practice, 10-lap averages, 20-lap averages, and put all that in, and I've got Denny Hamlin ranked as 4th. And if anybody's not new to my channel, I typically do not like front row starters. This week, I do like front row starters. So they practice really well. They run typically very well here. They have the opportunity to be dominant, and Denny Hamlin fits that to a T. So I have 45 to 50% of my lineups have Denny Hamlin. I run 40 lineups, and then I run in most of the 20 max tournaments. So then I kind of spread those picks out evenly throughout those tournaments to kind of give me some coverage everywhere. And hopefully hit for the optimal, or at least pretty high up there. And a lot of times that works out fairly well for me. Sometimes it doesn't. But for the most part, I feel that that's the safest way I like to play it. There are other people who like to make 1 to 3 lineups. There's some that like to make 150 different lineups. I kind of fallen into this whole, I like the 20 or 40 lineups, kind of gives me a spread across multiple different strategies. Martin Truex Jr. next in line here at 10,800, starting 31st. Oh, buddy. He missed his qualifying lap. He got in too hot to turn 1, and you only get 1 lap of qualifying, 1 shot, and he slipped. He didn't hit the wall, but it slowed him down enough that he will be starting 31st. He was 11th in practice on single lap, 4th in 10-lap consecutive average. So Martin Truex Jr.'s got a fast car. The Toyotas are fast. This is a great place differential spot. But, as you can see, we've already spent almost 2/3 of our money if we go for both, not 2/3, but a third of our money for 2 drivers. So we're spending a lot of money here real quick if we decide to take these 2 guys, which I honestly think I almost have to. The Truex Jr. is too good to be starting from the rear. I see this as a great opportunity for place differential. There's some guys starting back here I have no interest in. And when we get to our optimal lineups and those types of things, we'll kind of take a look. There's not a whole lot of place differential when it comes to the optimal lineups. I also did a much deeper dive into the last 5 races here, and when we get to that, I'll kind of share that screen also. Kind of gives you an idea of what I'm kind of thinking and looking at for this race. Kyle Larson next in line here at 10,500. Starting 18th, Kyle Larson had a great car yesterday. Well, not a great car. He was running really well until his engine started sputtering and did not finish well in the Xfinity race, but showed good speed, worked his way through the field and through the engine, decided to have a hiccup. But he was, for practice, he may have been one of the fastest Chevys. Chevys, if anybody did not watch qualifying, so they run the 2 different groups, Group A and Group B, and they take the top 5 from Group A and the top 5 from Group B and have them race for the pole. Well, there was not a Chevy. There was not a Hendrick. There was not anybody in the top 10 from Chevy camp at all that made the final round. Insane. I don't know the stat on the last time that Chevy didn't have a driver. Now they've had a lot where they've only had 1 or 2, and Kyle Larson was typically one of them. But even Kyle Larson kind of struggled a little bit in qualifying. Not the end of the world. I think Kyle Larson can work his way up, but Chevys and Hendricks don't seem to be as fast as the Ford and Toyotas this week. I don't know what's going on, if they're just strictly setting up for race trim or if they're just missing something. We'll have to wait and see, but it is a little worrisome. He was 7th in single lap practice, 8th in 10 lap consecutive average, so those are good. I mean, all indications. I mean, Kyle Larson, it's either feast or famine with Kyle Larson this year, and he's my driver. Boy, I messed up the ranking system, so I messed that up. But these percentages are correct, so ignore the ranking systems. I'll share that with you towards the end on my full ranking systems. But Kyle Larson, 10,500, starting 18th. Like I said, practices were pretty good. He's pretty good here. I can't believe Kyle Larson, for a track that is known for having to run right next to the wall, ripping the high side as they like it, or ripping the fence, which is Kyle Larson's expertise, has never won at Darlington. Being a fan, I looked at that today. I was like, has he never really won at Darlington? And he's won in the Xfinity car, but he's never won a cup race. Decent finishes. I mean, almost half the time he's finishing in the top 5. 7 times out of 11 he's finished in the top 10, and 10 out of 11 he's finished in the top 20. So Kyle Larson should end up having a decent day today. Hopefully it's not a feast or famine. I've got 30 to 35% ownership in Kyle Larson. Next in line here, William Byron, the winner from the spring race, 10,200, starting 23rd. Once again, Chevys, Hendrick struggled, but decent in practice. He was 4th in single lap, 7th in 10 lap consecutive average. Okay, practice speeds were good, but qualifying missed it. 12.0 average finish. William Byron does have that win from the spring race earlier this year. And if you remember back, William Byron also was leading the race in the spring of 2022 before Joey Logano moved him up and out of the way, causing a little bit worse of a finish. But William Byron is pretty solid here. I think out of the Chevy camp, these two are probably the best to keep an eye on. And they've got some place differential. Like I said, place differential is not going to be the absolute key, but there's some guys that you just are too good to miss. It's a Truex Jr. I think you almost kind of have to have him in your lineup. William Byron, it's kind of the same way. Also, pit stops and pit crews are going to be vital. And William Byron has absolutely one of the fastest pit crews this year, which will help him move up through the field as the pit stops happen. And trust me, every time the caution comes out, I don't care if they ran 10 laps, they're going to come in and get fresh tires. It's just that important. So I look at William Byron to have a solid day. Not only is he good here, number two, his pit crew is very, very good. So expect him to move up through the field without any real major issues. Let's see, Andrew, how good is Byron at managing tire wear? He's actually very good. He's not as good as a Kevin Harvick per se, but William Byron is probably one of the better drivers at saving tire wear. That's how he won this race in the spring, was his tire wear management. So, yeah, I expect William Byron to end up having a pretty good day today. I mean, as you see, I've got as much ownership in William Byron as I do Denny Hamlin. So I do have big hopes and dreams for William Byron today. But I mean, like I said, his practice speeds were good. Chevys were just not good in qualifying. Kyle Busch was the highest qualifying driver out of the Chevy camp. His price tag this week is $10,000. He was 15th in single lap. He was 6th in 10-lap consecutive average. But he hit the wall pretty hard in one of his last few laps of practice. He was able to manhandle that car around for an 11th place starting spot, but they have to replace the tie rod in the right rear, which means he will drop to the rear. He still will be qualified in 11th, so that will be his starting spot for Draftkings, but he will start 36th, shotgun on the field. So I do not like Kyle Busch because of this. This track is all about track position. Yes, you can work your way to the front, but that's asking a lot from potentially a mishandling race car. And yesterday in the Xfinity race, he was not a factor. I mean, you barely even heard Kyle Busch's name mentioned. Also, Ross Chastain, never even really heard him mentioned. I mean, Kyle Larson at least made it up through the field and was running close to the front. And Denny Hamlin goes out and wins. Kyle Busch was a non-factor yesterday in the Xfinity Series. And the Chevys, like I said, struggle a little bit in qualifying, and Kyle Busch is going to the rear. I'm gonna skip on Kyle Busch this week. I've only got 5 to 10% ownership. If he was able to hold on to his 11th starting spot, I might have a little bit more ownership and a little bit more faith. But anytime Kyle Busch ends up getting mired in deep, heavy traffic, it's going to be tough. I expect him to have an okay day, but I think he best gets up and kind of finishes where he starts. It's just a struggle. So, next in line here, Kevin Harvick in his last start at Darlington before his career finally sunsets here in 10 weeks. $9,800, starting 7th. He was 19th in single lap practice. He was 19th in 10-lap consecutive average. A good qualifying spot, but practice speeds are a tick on the concerning side. Other than the fact Kevin Harvick is really good at taking care of his equipment. His pit crew's not quite on point, but his crew chief is. I expect Kevin Harvick to be around at the end. I think he gets a top 10 finish. He might even get up and battle for a top 5, but I think just an honest, good, hard, consistent day from Kevin Harvick. If I remember right, he did lead some laps in the spring, but starting up front is going to be very, very important. Practice speeds were okay. He finished 2nd in the race in the spring earlier this year. 31 total starts with a 12.5 average finish, 2 wins, 14 top 5s. What have you done for me lately here at the track? I mean, he's got an average finish of 10th with 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s. He's consistently good here. Speaking of somebody who's not consistently good here, Ross Chastain, 9,600. Now, his sample size is not as big, but he was fast in the spring race and then decided to mix it up with Kyle Larson in the spring race. Other than that, was the first time he'd really had a solid, really fast race car at Darlington. I don't really know what to do with Ross. His practice speeds were not good. What have you done for me lately, Ross? His speeds have not been good on road courses where he got his first win. They were okay at best at Daytona. And prior to that, their average finish been like 24th, 23rd. So I don't know what's going on over at Trackhouse. I don't know if they were just kind of saving to get to the playoffs or the chase, but I mean, you got to come out and show me something more than that if you've been holding back. Kind of makes me think that something's going on with Trackhouse, that they're just not quite there. Also, the Chevy, so not real sure. A little concerning for the Chevy camp right now. Let's see if they can improve. I'm sure there will be a couple guys that will be there at the end of the race today, but there is a concern there. But Ross Chastain, 9,600, finished 29th, 19.4 average finish, 22.8 average finish out of 8 total starts. Only once in the top 5, which was also gives him the once in the top 10. Other than that, I mean, yeah, there's some place differential here, but I'm not sure there's enough place differential to really call this any type of value, because it's not value. I'm only at 10 to 15% on Ross Chastain. And it's much more of might be a fluke that he ends up getting up there. But next in line here, Christopher Bell, who was just absolutely blazing fast in practice. After the 10 lap, he ended up running like 25 laps consecutive. He was fastest in 15 lap, 20 lap, 25 lap, and then I think Denny Hamlin ended up being fastest at 30 lap consecutive average. But Christopher Bell across the board with Denny Hamlin were two of the fastest cars in practice and fastest in qualifying. Both of them starting inside and outside pole. Christopher Bell has a decent record here. He's got an 11-point average finish. He finished 14th here in the spring. He leads laps. He knows how to get up there. And remember, Christopher Bell seems to turn things on when we get to the playoffs. He did it last year and ended up making the Final Four. Will we start to see another surge of Christopher Bell now that we're into the playoffs? I don't have as much ownership of Christopher Bell as I do Denny Hamlin, mostly because Denny, I think, is better at Darlington, but Christopher Bell is a solid pick, even starting from the front row. And yes, I know, everybody that watches my shows, I don't like the front row unless I think they have a potential of getting up there and staying up there. I think Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin will play nice with each other. I think they may even swap the lead from time to time over that first run. But I honestly think they get away early and they're able to communicate with their crew chief. In fact, pull this little clip up that makes me feel this way about a Denny Hamlin. But very telling here. Not sure if you can hear this or not. Seem like you can. Oh well. I tried. Oh well. Either way, Denny Hamlin talks about how vital and crucial it is to start up front, to be able to communicate to their drivers. If you want to hear that interview, go to Bob Pockrass's Twitter feed or X feed, whatever they call it now, and take a listen. But it really kind of gives a real indication that the guys up front get the opportunity to really work on their cars and make them better for the next run. Whereas if you're mired in traffic and you've got some aero push and aero loose going on and you're constantly running around, guys, you're much more trying to figure out what your car is doing and not doing. And Denny Hamlin, one of the best here, so I'm going to take him for his word on what to expect. With that being said, I think, once again, I think Christopher Bell's in play, and I think Denny Hamlin is in play this weekend. I mean, Tyler Reddick's not in play, and he has a fairly consistent finish here. He did finish 22nd in the spring race, but prior to that, I mean, 11.4 average finish over the last 5 races, a 12.5 over 8 total races. I don't mind the Tyler Reddick play. Don't love it. I'm only at 10 to 15% ownership. I did fix these. Tyler Reddick, I don't pay attention to my power ranking. I don't think I fixed it right, but I did fix the ownership. I do have 10 to 15% ownership in Tyler Reddick. 9,300. I mean, Yeah, I mean, I think Tyler Reddick could kind of finish where he starts. Um, don't love the Tyler Reddick play. Don't hate the Tyler Reddick play. I like the Joey Logano play a little bit better. Joey's really, really good here at Darlington. He's really good at saving tires. And as long as he can just keep himself out of the troubles and not hit the wall, Joey Logano should have a solid day. Practice speeds were not awesome. His qualifying speed was really good, but he was 26th in single lap, 17th in 10 lap consecutive average. I mean, he finished 18th in this race last year or in the spring, but he's got the one win where he beat William Byron in the spring of 2022. He's got an 8.8 average finish, a 51.0 DraftKings average. I mean, all indications, Joey should have a pretty good day. Like I said, he's typically really good about saving tires and being around at the end. So keep an eye on Joey Logano. I do like some Joey Logano. Chris Buescher. I mean, God, one of the hottest drivers in NASCAR right now, and I've only got 10 to 15% ownership. BM crazy. But this is not one of Chris Buescher's best tracks, but it's not one of his worst either. So starting 8th, not sure if he gets up there and challenges for the lead, even to his own admission. If you go to, like I said, if you go to Bob Hocker's page today, there's an interview with Chris Buescher, and he talks about, he's like, yeah, I'm okay here. Brad's better. Well, if Brad's better, Chris Buescher may just try to tag along with Brad Keselowski. I do think I've got more Brad Keselowski than I do Chris Buescher this week. I think Chris ends up having a decent day. I don't think he improves much out of 8th. In fact, I think he's probably much more of a 10th to 15th place type guy today. But he's been hot lately. Woo-wee. He has been on fire. Probably the hottest driver in NASCAR right now, like I said. Brad K. I've got a little bit more ownership. 15 to 20%. Not a ton, but a little bit. He is starting 5th. He was 10th in single lap, 9th in 10 lap consecutive average. Brad K is actually pretty solid here. I mean, he's got a 15.2 average finish, but we got to remember, last year he was not great. He finished 4th in the race in the spring, pretty good. And I'd have to go back and look to see where he finished in 2021. But last year was a real struggle for Brad getting RFK turned into the right direction. And as we could tell, he has got them turned in the right direction. I think it is only a matter of time before Brad Keselowski gets the win. If he doesn't vie for one here this weekend, he probably will get one at Talladega. That's probably his best track. And as we saw, RFK is really good at super speedways. But yeah, I mean, Brad's got a win here. I like some Brad Keselowski, even starting 5th. I think that's a solid pick today. Ryan Blaney, not a bad pick either. He's consecutive average, or his average finish here is a 13.8. He was 16th in single lap, but he was 2nd in 10 lap consecutive average, and he didn't fall off much more from that in practice. So his long run speed's going to be pretty good. The question is, can he hold on to staying in the top 5 or top 10 long enough for the tire wears to equal out and him have an advantage and work his way back up front? Maybe. He finished 9th in the spring race. He's only got 2 top 10s, no top 5s, and starting 4th. So I don't love the Ryan Blaney play to here today. Don't absolutely hate it either. It's not an all-out fade, but I think they're better tracks for Ryan Blaney. And he's kind of had some bad luck. I mean, thank the Lord that he's okay after that hit at Daytona last week. I don't think I've ever seen a concrete wall flex and move as much as it did last week for Ryan Blaney. So good on NASCAR, good on the safer barrier, good on all the things for Ryan Blaney to walk out of that car, because I think that hit was as vicious as the 10 barrel roll that Ryan Preece had. So I don't mind Ryan Blaney. I don't hate Ryan Blaney for this weekend. I think they're better picks. Chase Elliott missed the playoffs as a driver, but his team is in it. The number 9 team is in the chase for Chase Elliott. Always think it's kind of funny to list those both at the same time. So, and the real money from the NASCAR points come from ownership finishing spot in the chase. So there is as much monetary value as there is prestige for Chase Elliott to still run and do well. Starting 13th, I mean, once again, my concern is, number one, he was 30th in practice on single lap, 21st in 10 lap consecutive average, and the Chevys just don't seem to have the speed that the Fords and Toyotas have. Now, long run, that might change a little bit, but even in long run speed, in long runs, 10 laps is not that long. That's why I wish they would have longer practices so we could have seen some 30, 35, 40 lap runs more across the field. We had a couple guys that got up there, but when you've only got 4 guys that do 30 lap consecutive averages, it's really hard to tell who's actually fast and who's not because the sample size is really small. I mean, Chase Elliott did finish 3rd here in the spring. I mean, he's got his average finish is about where he starts. So I don't have a whole lot of ownership in Chase. I think they're just looking to go out and have a good, solid day and not make any huge mistakes. Now, does that potentially lead to getting a top 10? Possibly, but we don't normally see a ton of attrition at Darlington. That's the other kind of key to this puzzle, is we don't see a ton of attrition typically out of Darlington. Because typically the other thing is the wrecks aren't as severe. And then you can replace a tie rod, which is typically the issue. You can replace the tie rod now fast enough in this car that you typically will beat the clock. And honestly, if you didn't bring out a caution and you just rubbed the wall and broke a tie rod, you could actually, because it's mechanical and not cosmetic, you can actually come in, get that changed, as long as you get yourself off the DVP clock. It's 6 minutes, and they've gotten it to where they can change it in less than 6. So that's why we don't see the carnage, is because, number one, the other thing is these guys run so close to the wall that if they do happen to rub, they just get the Darlington stripe. So it's not like they have these larger crashes where they're hitting the inside wall and they're tearing stuff up and they can't race anymore. I mean, even in the Xfinity race yesterday, we had a handful of cautions, but all of the wrecks none of them were severe, and the cars were able to continue to go. I mean, Kyle Larson, I think, might have gotten back in the race, but if not, he was the only car to not finish the race at an Xfinity race. 38 cars started, 37 cars finished. And I think the worst was Josh Williams, finished 5 laps down, and he was missing his whole front right quarter panel. So, I mean, there's a little bit of short track that goes on with Darlington where they're not absolutely dependent on aero. They're not going to win, but they're not going to get knocked out of the race completely. So kind of keep that in mind. We don't see huge attrition at Darlington typically. So that kind of leads to much more of a finishing position and dominator type situation, as not as much as place differential. Like I said, they're guys to target for place differential. And you would think Eric Jones would be one of them. I think Eric Jones is probably going to actually get pretty heavily owned because he actually won this race last year. But a couple factors. Driving a Chevy. The Chevys don't seem to have great speed this week. He's driving for legacy. They don't have the Chevy support. Yeah, Eric Jones won this race, and he's typically not bad here, but I mean, he's got a 20.2 average finish, 25th in the spring race. You know, I mean, 11 total starts, he's got a 12.0 average finish, but a lot of that came from when he was racing for Toyota and Joe Gibbs. So it's a little bit skewed. I don't love the Eric Jones play today. As you can see, I'm only at 5 to 10%. Nothing kind of shows or looks for me to see him finish better than where he starts. Is it possible? Sure. But I think they're just better options mid-tier range. And Daniel Suarez is not one of them. 31st in single lap, 25th in 10 lap consecutive average in practice. He went out and qualified 21st. Once again, Trackhouse is just missing something. Daniel Suarez average finish is 19.6 over the last 5 races at Darlington, so not great. You're not improving there. He finished 34th in the spring race. No improvement there. I have little to no ownership in Daniel Suarez. If he ends up having a good day, guess I won't. But I'm more than willing to take my chances that this is much more of what we see out of Daniel Suarez than normal. So, or just nothing that shows that he's going to finish top 15. Alex Bowman, 7,600, starting 24th. And once again, Bob Pockris interviewed him, and it's on Bob's X feed or Twitter feed, what you want to call it. And you just listen to him. Yeah, I understand he missed the playoffs, and not even his car is in the playoffs. But he just absolutely sounded dejected in his interview. And just, it's not a good sign for Alex Bowman. I don't really love the play. I'm probably more owned than I want to be. There is some place differential here, potentially. Nothing is telling me that it's going to be much better. I mean, it's kind of like a Daniel Suarez. A lot of times Alex Bowman will push the car too much and end up getting into the wall. And yeah, getting in the wall is going to slow you down, and it's going to impede your progress towards the front. But I just don't like the Alex Bowman play today. I think they're just shooting for maybe we do well. But if not, let's get some testing done so we can help our other teammates that are in the chase, and let's work on what we're going to do for next year. So I don't love the Alex Bowman play currently. So Michael McDowell made the playoffs. Then, and he's fast at practice. A little unusual because he's not typically real good at Darlington. He's going to start 9th, his best qualifying position. He was second in single lap, did not do a 10-lap consecutive average. That's a little bit concerning and worrying because I don't know if they know what they have for long run speed. And as we can see, he has not performed well at Darlington in the past. 33rd in the spring, 22.0 average finish over the last 5, and 15 total times with a 25.2 average finish. I mean, at best, what he needs to do is just not screw his chance at making the next round of the chase. So I think it is going to be much more of just, hey, let's not screw this up. Let's not screw our pit stops up. Let's not screw our car up, which will lead me to think that he's going to fall a little bit back, not so far back. And as long as he doesn't get in somebody else's mess, I think he ends up getting a 15th, 16th place finish, which really isn't enough for me to think that he could make optimal or even top 15 points, Draftkings points. Ty Gibbs, 7,200. While the rest of the Toyota camp was pretty fast, Ty Gibbs was average. 18th in single lap, 20th in 10-lap consecutive average. It's going to start 17th. I mean, he's pretty good here. He had a 15.5 average finish for 2 starts. Not bad, not great. Finished 16th here in the spring, which means he probably finished his race in 16th. So, I mean, the 2 times he's raced here, he's finished where he starts. So, all indications, that's kind of what's going to happen again this week. And I don't think that's far enough up for his price tag for me to have much ownership, which I don't. 5 to 10%. Don't love the Ty Gibbs play today. Like I said, I'm still on record, and I'll still say Ty Gibbs will get a win before here. Don't think it's going to be Darlington. Just, it is a brutally long race. Not that he's not capable of racing long races. He did the Coke 600, but this is a different beast. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., $7,000. Who just missed his qualifying along with the rest of the Chevys. 3rd in single lap, though. He was fast in practice. 3rd in single lap practice, 10th in 10-lap consecutive average. Okay, pretty good. And then he goes out and qualifies 25th. And then, decent thing is Ricky's decent at Darlington. Little feast or famine with him. Either he's going to run top 10, top 20, or he's going to finish 34th. I'm going to go with the hope that he's going to run well because he's in the chase. He's in the playoffs. I mean, along with the rest of them, they just have got to escape Darlington with a decent finish. Well, Ricky Stout Jr. gets a decent finish. That's going to be 8th through 14th, which starting 25th, there's enough place differential there. So I do have a decent amount of ownership in Jr. It is a little bit of a risky play, but the 47 team have been faster this year than they have in the past. So, Austin Dillon, kind of like Ricky Stenhouse Jr., but not in the playoffs. Now, his practice speeds were pretty pitiful. 35th in single lap, 28th in 10 lap consecutive average. That's not great. Didn't go out and qualified 28th. So, not great. We do have a little bit of place differential. I think this is kind of more of a... This is going to make people take Austin Dillon, and I don't know if that's actually the best play. I like a Ricky Stenhouse Jr. more than I like an Austin Dillon, even though I know the percentages or the averages don't quite mesh. Austin Dillon seems to be a little bit better. But Austin Dillon also a lot of times was racing because he was in the chase. He's not in the chase. Ricky is. So, I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm a lot off. I mean, 15 to 20% ownership on Austin Dillon. I'm not fully off of him. I think there is an opportunity for place differential. I'm not sure Austin Dillon gets up there in battles for top 5 or top 10. But I mean, I don't really need him to. I need to go out and finish 11th, 12th, or 13th. Kind of same with Ricky Stenhouse. I need, this is not a bad pairing together. I don't know. I like the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. play more than I like the Austin Dillon play. Mostly because he's in the playoffs and he isn't. Eric Almirola, 6,700, starting 10th. 24th in single lap, 22nd in 10 lap consecutive average in practice. This is not one of his best tracks. He's a 19.2 average finish. Doesn't have a top 10 in the last 5, but only has 3 top 10s out of 16 total races here. 16.6 average finish. Finished 21st in the spring. 19.2 average finish over the last 5 races here, Darlington. Yeah, I just don't think he gets up there and is going to fight for a top 10. So going to drop further back, and once you start finishing further back than 10th, really not something I've got a whole lot of interest in. I don't think he's going to get up and lead a bunch of laps. Chase Brisco next in line here at $6,500, starting 12th. Wow. Forwards have really brought it, especially the SHR cars have really brought it for practice and qualifying. Now, last week they were able to hold on and maintain some track position, but typically they haven't. Chase Brisco has been one of the slower cars in the field. Now, he does seem to perform pretty well at Darlington. 8.8 average finish. Not great, not bad. 17th. But starting 12th. A little bit concerning there. Not a lot of place differential, especially with who he's going up against. So I don't love the Chase Brisco play. I do have him in some lineups, but not a ton. So a little nervous about the Brisco play. AJ Almendinger, he does not like this place, and this place really doesn't like him. 23rd average finish, 26th average finish out of his total career. In practice, he was only 25th fastest and 23rd in 10 lap consecutive average. Qualified 16th, which is one of the better Chevy qualifying, but AJ just is not good here. It's too frustrating for him. His car's not perfect. AJ's going to have a rough day, and I think AJ finishes in the 20s, so I don't have a whole lot of interest this weekend. Maybe if they put a chicane around the backstretch or something, maybe would have liked it, but no chicane. Corey LaJoie, next in line here at $6,200, starting 22nd. 22nd in single lap speed, 16th in 10 lap consecutive average. Okay. Corey's also been outperforming his averages this year. He finished 24th in the spring. Not bad, but I mean, we're now down in the 6,200 range. I need Corey to do a little bit better tonight than his average finishes. Don't love the starting spot for Corey LaJoie, but don't hate it. Probably a little heavier than I want to be on the Corey LaJoie play. The other thing is there's only a handful of guys past Corey LaJoie that really have much interest in. So that's why Corey's getting a little bit, probably more love than I really should be giving him. So buyer beware on the Corey LaJoie play. Austin Cindric, 6,100. His birthday was yesterday, and he went out and turned some really fast laps in practice and qualifying. 14th qualifying, 6th in single lap speed, 1st in 10 lap consecutive average. Good long run speed for Austin Cindric. He's decent here. Been out of 3 starts. He's got 3 top 20s. He's starting 14th. At 6,100, you can almost get away with finishing where you start and being in the top at least 15 in points. You're not going to make the optimal lineup, but top 15 in points. And honestly, if you're playing in large tournament plays and you're playing multiple lineups, that's what you're trying to really hone in on, is who are the top 15 potential point getters for DraftKings. Austin Cindric probably fits into that category at least okay. Don't love it, don't hate it. I do have 10 to 15% ownership in Austin Cindric. Ryan Preece. Man, what a wreck. Glad to see that he is back at the track, that he's going to race. 34th in single lap, and I think a lot of this in practice had to do with, I'm a little bit nervous. I just literally got out of the hospital from wrecking one of these cars. And then he kind of warmed up once he got to qualifying. He went out and qualified 21st. Not bad. Got a 17.3 average finish here out of 3 starts. 15th place finish in the spring. Okay. I mean, it's one of his better tracks, and he's pretty good at this type of track. Short, high tire wear. It kind of fits into his wheelhouse of what he used to race. So, it's going to be a long race, though. So, as long as he doesn't have... He's been absolutely cleared by the doctors. They say there's no head trauma, no problems, no broken bones. But he's still got to be sore. So as long as he can hold up and maintain, Ryan Preece is an okay play. There is a little bit of concern about the longevity because of the length of this race. Carson Hocevar, 5,700. Congrats to Carson for getting another Cup start. And he was performing really well at Gateway before he blew out a brake rotor. The problem is, Carson, you went out and qualified 15th. Good on you, but not good for DraftKings. I do not like that play at all. I think Carson, I'm sure the goal for Carson is let's get out, let's turn as many laps as I possibly can. Let me get more experience in the Cup car. So if and when you race next year in this series, where he might race, we don't know. Maybe he'll be in this car. No. Could be in the 77. Oh no. And it looks like SHR and 2311 squashed that rumor. So much for that rumor. Conspiracy theory does not pan out there, at least not as of this point. We'll see though. There's still more time. Denny Hamlin still has not signed a contract, and neither is 2311 with Toyota. Possibility. But Carson Hocevar, 5,700, starting 15th. Way too far up. There's no... I guess there's a way he holds on to that. But I just don't see... The length of this race will be the longest race that Carson Hocevar has ever run in his life. I just don't see him being able to maintain and hold on to 50. Ryan Newman, 5,600, starting 35th. We're driving the 51 car. They've had moments recently where the Rick Ware cars have done well. The problem was I think this is about where he started in the spring race, and he finished 28th. The problem is that's not enough. I need a little bit more. I need a 20th place finish. I need an 18th place finish for Ryan Newman. Just don't know if that's there. Possibly. Now we're saving a ton of money with somebody who's got a ton of experience at this track. I mean, 13.5 average finish over 27 races. He's never won, but he's got 5 top 5s. So he understands how to get around here. Understands the tire wear. The problem is this car is still kind of new to him. So, I mean, I've got some ownership in Ryan Newman. I like Ryan Newman play over the Carson Hocevar play. I mean, just sheer, like, I don't think there's going to be a ton of, like, pure attrition. I think there were going to be some damaged cars that are going to run out and be running a little bit slower as long as Ryan Newman keeps his car clean. he'll probably move up some spots. Question is, I don't know if he moves up enough. We're Justin Haley at 5,500, starting 29th, 20th in single lap, 18th in 10 lap consecutive average. Runs really well here. He's got a total of 5 starts, and out of those 5 starts, he's got a 16.6 average finish. 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, 3 top 20s, 8th place in the spring race. I like the Justin Haley play as a cheap value pick. There's a couple of value picks down here that I like. Justin Haley is one of them. So I do like the Justin Haley play, especially starting 29th. It does give us a little bit of place differential. And this is really where you're trying to find some place differential with value. So you can take a Denny Hamlin and a Kyle Larson and a William Byron and a Christopher Bell. And a Martin Truex Jr. I mean, those are 5 of the guys that I think potentially could easily finish in the top 5, all 5 of them. And Martin Truex Jr. is going to get a ton of points because he's coming from 31st. So there is place differential involvement in this, but there's also a lot of finishing spots and dominator points. So Harrison Burton, another one that this is one of Harrison Burton's better tracks. He needs to have a good finish. He's starting 32nd. He just missed his qualifying, it looks like. Didn't really notice anything on TV when I was watching qualifying, but he definitely was a little bit slower in qualifying. But I'll take his practice speeds. He was 14th in single lap, 15th in 10 lap consecutive average. I mean, for Harrison, he's got a 13.7 average finish over 3 starts here. 2 top 10s, 1 top 5. He finished 6th in the spring race. I like Harrison Burton's good here. I've loved the price tag and the starting spot. So I also expect Harrison Burton to probably be pretty heavily owned. I'm probably overweight on the field from Harrison, but I do expect Harrison Burton to be pretty heavily owned because of his price tag and his starting spot and finish well. Todd Gillen, I mean, these 3 guys here, literally pair these 3 guys up and you compare the other 3 at the top. And that's kind of how you want to build these lineups. But Todd Gillen, starting 30th, was 27th in single lap, so not great, but not bad. He finished 11th in this race in the spring, 18th place average finish. Yeah, if you're looking for a potential value pick and place differential, these 3 guys kind of fit that T. Move them in and out of different lineups, maybe run them all together. But I think these guys are going to, one of these 3 guys is going to end up top 10 in points and or top 10 or potentially optimal. May get top 10s by themselves. He had an 8th place, a 6th place, and 11th place in the spring race. So they understand how to get around here and be good. JJ Yaley, $5,000, starting 33rd. 33rd in single lap practice. Got a 28.7 average finish. 29.5 over 15 total races. I think I threw him in a few lineups just because little hits all I had left to spend. I don't love it. Ty Dillon, I would normally be interested in, especially with a 20.3 average finish. It's kind of like these guys up here. He runs Darlington pretty well. Starting 26 though, I need more place differential potential out of a Ty Dillon. I think he has the ability to probably get up to 20th, but starting 26, 6 points isn't going to cut it. I needed Ty Dillon to start 33rd, 34th, and then he would have been in play. I don't love the starting spot by Ty Dillon. BJ McLeod might have the coolest car out there this weekend, but he's not going to. There's no interest. Starting 36, he was 34th in single lap, 31st in 10 lap consecutive average. I mean, good on BJ. Usually he only runs a handful of laps. He doesn't do that many. But a 33.1 average finish, 30.4 over the last 5. There's nothing here. There's savings, but all right, guys that I like. I like Martin Truex Jr., William Byron, and Kyle Larson, all to make up place differential spots. I like Denny Hamlin to go out and just be a dominator. I think Martin Truex Jr. is starting too far back to be a dominator for this race. I think the battle is going to be between Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin on just pairing up at least first stage, maybe even the second stage. And at that point, you've got 120 laps of laps led, and probably fast laps, which, as you'll see in a few minutes, is enough to make at least the top 15 in points, if not make optimal lineup. I know Ross Chastain's at the top of this place differential, but I think I'd much rather take a Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Justin Haley, Harrison Burton as place differentials. I mean, Ross is in the playoffs and he needs to have a good, solid finish. God, what have you done for me lately, Ross? I mean, other than winning at Nashville, he's almost fallen off the NASCAR map. So a little concerning there, and also Suarez being in the same camp just doesn't seem to have the speed. So I don't love the Ross play. We haven't really talked about Bubba Wallace a whole lot. Starting 19th, decent amount of place differential. You know, Bubba says that the stress is all gone. He made the playoffs. His head seems to be in a much better spot. Bubba's not bad here. I remember talking about Bubba. Did I just skip over? Why have we talked about? Maybe we just skipped over Bubba Wallace after Chase Elliott. Sorry if I did. That was not intentional. So we'll go back and we'll talk about Bubba Wallace. Yeah, I'm almost positive I didn't talk about Bubba Wallace. Starting 19th. 5th in single lap practice, 11th in 10 lap consecutive average. He's got a 16.5 average finishing. He finished 5th here in the spring race. Did have the But in the spring race, he ran really, really well. Even last year, he ran pretty well. I think Bubba Wallace is a decent play today. I've got him in 10 to 15% of my lineups. I think as long as his pit crew doesn't screw him up, I think Bubba Wallace is I'm not sure he gets to top 5, but Bubba Wallace gets up to an 8th place finish. That's enough place differential for me to be happy with. So I've got him in 15 to 20% of my lineup. All right, sorry about that. I didn't mean to leave old Bubba Wallace off of there. Congrats on him for making the playoffs. I thought he was going to crack under pressure, so good for him. I think Ryan Preece will have a decent day today. Those types of things. Optimal lineups. Let's look at these optimal lineups from the past. The guys that came from the rear are the guys that you expected would come from the rear. Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott. Chris Buescher finishing 10th, so I'm in 17 spots of place differential. Justin Haley and Harrison Burton. Okay, that's kind of interesting. I didn't expect that, but they had good runs. And they've had good runs every time they've come to Darlington. Not sure why that would change now. So then it is Justin Haley and Harrison Burton. But as you can see, we had a guy starting in 4th who didn't lead a ton of laps to win the race. I think better to look at is, this is what I dove into last night when I was watching football. That's why I didn't do the video last night. All right, so what I did was I went through the last 5 races. I'm not sure if this is going to be very clear on anybody's picture, but hopefully it is. And I started to look at where the top points getters, where the top 15 line was. Well, we're looking for between 33 and 35 DraftKings points. So then we start to break down, okay, where are these points coming from? Well, Ryan Preece and Chase Briscoe didn't make the optimal. And I also took the dollar values out. I was looking more for where these guys were starting and where they finished. And a Martin Truex Jr., who started on the pole, finished 31st, still had 45 points. So the dominator here is very important. And I remember looking back, Martin Truex Jr. had Martin Truex Jr. led 145 laps and had 65 fast laps. That's why he was able to maintain and hold on to, even losing 30 points. So, I mean, he could have cut that in half. He would have finished even. He would have been up here, and lost. But almost everybody, there is place differential. Don't get me wrong, but we're also showing that the place differential isn't huge. Now I think a Martin Truex Jr. is definitely in play for place differential. I think. I mean, most of these guys. I mean, 27th to 10th, 22nd to 8th, 24th to 11th. Chase Brisco 31st to 17th. So, I mean, there's still lots of guys that had 10 better places, place differential. But then we look over here at the fall race from last year. Well, the optimal lineup, or the top 15 in points, started in 1st, 3rd, 5th, 4th, 8th. Brad Keselowski from 25th to 7th, place differential, and also finishing in the top 10. Now, Kyle Busch started in 5th, finished 30th as he got up, and dominator points. Let's take a look. Kyle Busch led 155 laps with 35 fast laps. I mean, same thing with Martin Truex Jr. again for the fall race last year. Truex Jr. 48 laps led, 46 fast laps. And we look down through here. Now, he didn't make the top 15 in points, but he's not far out. He had a 30.7. I mean, honestly, what you're trying to find is 15 guys that you think are going to get 35 points or better. And that's how you need to build your lineups. As long as you're building multiple lineups. If you're building cash lineups, it's a little bit different, and I get that. Then here again, now we had Chase Elliott, Kevin Harvick, both starting 34th, 35th. It's the same scenario as Martin Truex Jr. today, starting 31st. I think you almost have to have him. Now, Justin Haley going from 29th to 3rd, that's a huge place differential value pick. But after that, I mean, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., again, in the top 10. Top 15 in point getters. Michael McDowell is one. But don't have a ton of people starting in the 30s. I mean, other than the two obvious, Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick, starting 34th, 35th, that was almost a given that you almost had to play them. Place differential is playing a little bit of a role here, but dominator points are also playing a pretty big role. And once again, over here, 6th place, 2nd place. That's why I said the front row is not out of play here. I mean, every race we had a 2nd place, 2nd place, 1st, a 1st, and a 1st. Somebody on the front row of the last 5 races at Darlington have made the top 15 in points. And honestly, let's go back looking at this again. We've got a 4th that made the optimal lineup in the spring race. A pole sitter made the optimal lineup in the fall race, so the longer race, 367 laps. Now, we didn't have any true dominators because it was spread out a little bit, but still, even following 3 spots because he finished in the top 5, was able to make the optimal lineup from Joey Logano. But, I mean, yeah, I mean, you've got 1 or 2 place differential value type guys almost every race. Harrison Burton, Justin Haley, a Cole Custer, and I guess maybe an Eric Jones at 7,200. Yeah, I guess he'd be valued then. Brad Keselowski was a 6,700 last fall. He was so cheap for Brad K back then, but he wasn't good. We had a pole sitter. We had Justin Haley again coming from 29th. Like I said, Justin Haley's really good here. So don't sleep on Justin Haley. Now this week today he'll go out and get wrecked in lap 10 and shoot all of our lineups to heck. But Christopher Bell starting 3rd. I mean, we've got guys that are in play that are starting in the top 10. I mean, the fall race of 2021, yes, old gen car, but still, Darlington's not that much different. You had somebody starting from the front row. You've got Denny Hamlin starting in 6th, Kurt Busch starting in 3rd, and then two value, Ross Chastain 23rd to 3rd, and Corey LaJoie 25th to 15th. So, I mean, and once again, the spending limit is kind of all over the place. So don't sleep on guys that are starting in the top 10 or starting up front. I know I typically do not advise anybody to do that. You got to run your own lineups. So I've got a decent amount of ownership of guys that are starting front row, top 5, top 10. They're all in play. What we're really looking for is guys that are consistent here. But I mean, either way, I think it's gonna be a great race. It's gonna be a long race. Make sure you drink some water in between your adult beverages. That way you can make it through the end of this race. But I think it's gonna be we're gonna have some dull moments where guys are just kind of running, but there's same time you can also kind of look at the comers and goers and who's saving tires and who's not saving tires and pit strategies and all of those things that go along with what makes Darlington just one of the best tracks that we go to on the circuit. I would hate for Darlington to go to only one race again. I know there's talk and rumor of it only being the first race of the chase. And I hope that's not the case. I hope they are able to hold on and maintain and keep both of those. Now, I would like to see Darlington only be run at night. Just like I think Richmond should only be run at night. It just the atmosphere is better, and I know TV doesn't like it because they don't get the numbers that they want. Blah blah blah. What I like, I usually don't get. So it is what it is. Paul, greetings. I'm on Toyota train today. Good luck. Yes, Toyota should be fast. Ford should be fast. Chevy is a big fat question. I mean, I think your normal Chevy guys that run well are going to show up. William Byron's going to show up. Mostly, not that he's not good there. He is good there. He's also going to show up because he's got the fastest pit crew out there. We've got a ton of pit stops that'll be made tonight. So they're going to make up a lot of place track position by pit stops. So I expect William Byron to be there. Now, there were some other notes that I took from practice and just throughout the week. Oh, did I close it? Hold on. If I can find that real quick. Hold on. I have notes. Darlington Cup practice notes. I'll put this up real quick. Larson was running the low groove most of practice, trying some different things out, is what I kind of concurred from some of the talk on the radio and TV. McDowell unloaded fast and was fast all through practice. Lots of crew chief swaps. Ryan Preece is back. Bell took it easy the first 15 to 20 laps of his practice and then was still fast throughout practice. So Bell is going to be extremely fast. Hamlin's going to be extremely fast. Cindric was fast early in practice, but does not have long run speed, so be careful of Cindric long run. Busch's car was tight in practice, then ended up rubbing the wall and ended up breaking a toe link and has to be replaced and go to the rear, so be careful with him. Austin Dillon had a battery fire during qualifying or right after qualifying or right after practice, somewhere in there. So that could have thrown off what was happening with his practice. No word on, I don't think a battery issue is something that's in somebody's rear. So don't think Austin Dillon's going to the rear. And if he is, he's only losing 8 spots. It's world. Harrison Burton has a new crew chief. They've run together in the past. They're pretty comfortable with each other. So that could be something interesting to watch with Harrison. He's already pretty good here. That might make him a little bit better. Ross Chastain was slow again this week. Chevys really were struggling all through practice and qualifying. The Fords and Toyotas are much faster. Chase Brisco underdrove his qualifying lap in his interview, so that's why he was a little bit slower. Don't worry about that. Anything, still qualified pretty well. Reddick was fastest in both first round. Reddick was fastest in the first round of qualifying, so that shows Toyota's got the speed. Truex was awful in qualifying because he slipped going into turn 1. No Hendrick or Chevy in the final round of qualifying. That was big news. And then, of course, Kyle Busch going to the rear. So those are kind of my notes from what I got from practice. Hopefully it helps anybody out. If anybody's got any questions, thoughts, concerns, we've got a few more minutes before we go do house chores and things around the house before we sit down to watch a race. But if not, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Decent amount of viewers out there today. Thanks for joining. Let's see. Next Saturday, my college football team plays afternoon, so no worry there. We are at Kansas, which is Sunday race, midday, not late. Yeah, so more likely Saturday night next week, I will be back for the Saturday night broadcast. Today was kind of there was Virginia Tech played football last night, which I'm a big fan of. So I watched that, and the race wasn't until 6 o'clock. So we got 4 hours between now and then to get your lineup set. So go get it. Go win some money. Let me know if you hit for any of the big pots tonight. Would love to know that. Even if it was a little morsel of my video that helped out, that always makes things go better. So good luck tonight. It's going to be a fun one to watch. It's going to be crazy. It always is when they get to the chase. So have a great one. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We will talk to you next week. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W's, so got to be around at the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You are fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby!
Hell yeah!
Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Great job, guys. Excellent work, my man. Excellent work. Thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal, we got it here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away.
Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job.
Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.